Are you a brand that is considering channel expansion to TikTok? Well, in today's video, we're going to be sharing some essential pro tips to fitting into the ecosystem, which includes creative ad structure. You got to try this, and how interest targeting might work a little differently here than it does for you on other channels. And stick around to the end for a really clever creative testing strategy and how you're going to use AI to do it. I am Matt, talking to the marketing industry's top talent through the world-class growth agency Jump 450. My guest today is Senior Acquisition Manager at Jump, Shivani Kakar. How you doing, Shivani?
Hello, hello. Happy to be here.
Shivani, so you have run ads on TikTok across a number of different clients, across different industries, and we want to share some kind of pro tips today. Some things that we've learned, not necessarily like, hey, this is how you set up your ads manager account, but like some more deeper insights and approaches that we have found to work on TikTok. I thought maybe we could just start though by saying, if somebody's watching and they're still feeling a little on the fence about should I even expand to TikTok as a channel, maybe you've got some compelling data to sort of point us in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who wants to learn more or know why it's important to be part of a media mix, happy to talk. Across a lot of different clients, a lot of different verticals that I have run ads for, where we have really seen TikTok sort of shine is be a super strong engager as a channel. I was just looking at one client recently, and we actually found TikTok drive 128% higher click-through rate on the same or very, very similar videos as compared to Instagram, with
Wow.
similar targeting, similar everything, but just seeing that user base be a lot more engaged, especially in the video space. So I think for any client or any brand that is looking to get their name out there, increase their brand awareness, and make more people aware and engaged with what they have to offer, TikTok can be a really great place for them to invest some media dollars.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, because TikTok really, it does feel more of a like kind of community than somewhere like Instagram. You can really kind of dig into the niches that you're looking for and that kind of thing. But sort of without further ado here, let's talk about some of the strategies or approaches that we have found to be most successful in scaling TikTok. Do you want to start with Spark ads?
Yeah, absolutely. So
First
Spark
of all, what are Spark ads?
I was gonna say, Spark Ads, for anyone who isn't super familiar, is essentially TikTok's way of doing whitelisting or influencer content.
Yeah.
So within the platform, especially for TikTok, a ton of brands see people posting organically. You're seeing some users, whether they're part of your influencer network or not, showcasing your product, talking about it, having some great content out there. What we want to be able to do is essentially leverage that and be able to get what TikTok calls as a Spark code from that individual creator. So rather than having to export the exact video, run it as a branded ad, you're able to run it directly out of that influencer's or creator's ad account and showcase it as something coming a lot more organically.
Yep.
Something that we have seen on TikTok time and time again is people are a little bit averse to super branded information. They aren't looking to be sold directly. They want to understand what's out there. They want to see what their community is posting. And that's why trends change so quickly as well. And so if you're seeing something come out of a creator handle where the story feels a lot more genuine, they're talking about it as part of their, everyday lifestyle potentially, that can resonate a lot better coming from that creator handle versus your brand handle. And that's where Spark Ads can really come in and, help boost that overall engagement like we were talking about.
Absolutely. It's so funny too, because I feel like, as a viewer of social media myself too, you just notice how sort of keen your eye becomes to sort of recognizing these little details, right? So even like, I'm looking at a post, my eye goes to the video first, but then like, if I do feel like maybe it's branded, I do find my eye going up to like, what is the handle at the top? And if it's the brand, I'm like, swipe, like not looking for that, you know what I mean? But if it's a creator, even if I know it's an ad, I do accept it more. I find that in my own behavior.
Exactly. And you're able to dive in a little bit more. You're able to understand, hey, who is this person? Is this someone I potentially resonate with? And that's another thing that we've seen come up a lot. This was something I wanted to make sure I chatted about with you, and it leans in perfectly, is we're not really seeing the same type of branded content work well. So even if it's coming from a creator handle or a brand handle, for example, I feel like Marketing 101 has always told us, make sure you show your product in the first 3 seconds.
Yes.
It has to be front and center or people are not going to remember it. And that's something that, interestingly enough, I just haven't seen work as well on TikTok in particular. So, for example, if we're looking at, talking to a busy mom and we're saying, hey, how can you fix your dinner time schedule?
Yep.
9 out of 10 times, if you talk to a marketing professor or a marketing professional, 10, 20 years ago, they would say, you need to show exactly what they need to cook, exactly what they need to make, first 2 seconds, or you're going to lose them.
Yep.
And what we're actually seeing work now is we don't want to show the brand. We don't want to give away that secret sauce kind of immediately. We want to draw that intrigue. We want to get that user to essentially be put into a position where they're like, hey, that's me. I know that struggle. I want to watch this more. And so something like, oh my God, you're never going to guess what my hack is for dinner time. Have it blurred in the background. Have someone talking about it. Draw those eyes in. That's what's working a little bit better. That's what's getting people to actually stay in. And the way I like to think about it is almost like a problem, agitate, solution format that we've seen work really well. So essentially, you don't want to show up and suddenly say, hey, I have a solution for you. You want to do this, and I'm going to put my product in front of you. You need to first tell that person, hey, you've got a problem. So let's point that out. Using the same example, do you have a picky eater? Do you find yourself struggling every day going through your refrigerator, not knowing what to cook? Do you hate the sound of screaming children when they're hungry? Whatever that may be, let's get that hook in first before we tell someone how to solve that problem. And go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I would even go even a little bit more extreme because we're talking about TikTok. I've seen ads on TikTok where they start out so organically. It's like, hey, this is my day in a life as a yada, 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 XYZ person. And I'm in the video. And then maybe a quarter of the way into the video, then they start introducing the problem. And then comes the solution. So it's like, I guess the sort of insight here is like really sort of bury the ad, bury the product, bury the solution, but really earn that viewer through storytelling, right?
Exactly. I think engagement is really what brands should be looking at with TikTok. It's understanding how that storytelling is actually having a halo effect for the brand overall. How many people are you coming to see it? Not just, how many people did we show this to, but how many of them were actually focused? How many got through to 75, 80% of our video? And that's the point where you're also mentioning your brand. So there's a lot of slices and dices you can do like that as well. So if you don't mention your brand at all for the first half of a video, for example, you want to be able to look in and make sure, hey, is that first half engaging enough that we're actually getting most people to get to that point where we talk about our brand?
Right.
If you're not, probably a lot of creative testing still to do, but we'll get there, and that's when you're going to see that larger halo effect really come into play and start to see where that channel can truly shine.
Definitely. And, it also, I think that the longer you can sort of retain that viewer into the second half of the video, even for myself, even once I do find out it's an ad, you've already earned me as the viewer. I'm in. I'm listening to the story. I kind of don't care that it's an ad at that point. Maybe this is just me being a marketer, but I'm a little like, touche. You got me. So I'll finish this out.
Doing its job.
Yes. I think that even just these first two insights that we're giving are really kind of showing a broader philosophy that we have towards running on TikTok, right? And it really is about that camouflage, about sort of blending in and not standing out as a company, a sales pitch, a brand, right? So we've talked about Spark ads, and really, I think what you were kind of touching on there was more of like a creative ad structure, right? I thought you had similar insights in terms of interest targeting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it honestly flows hand in hand with the thought process of TikTok is a community. And I think people who are the most engaged on TikTok are looking for content that is very native to that platform.
Yeah.
Something that we found that I, at least as a marketer, found super interesting is in the last, I'd say 3-4 years, pretty much every channel is moving towards a more automated algorithmic structure to the way you're going after users. How are we telling people, this is the right consumer for me and for my brand? And to very high degrees, that is true. We do want to make sure our creative is really doing that storytelling for us. And we'll chat about how we can make that creative really, really work. But outside of that, especially if you're a brand that's starting off new, you kind of have to train that pixel. You have to train the algorithm. You have to give some signals first to let TikTok know, okay, what is the right user? And once you start to see that data come through, you can allow it to expand a little bit and use those learnings. But what I think was really interesting is especially for any brands that are interested in interest-based targeting, or for TikTok, especially hashtag level targeting, that's where we want to get really niche into the specific hashtags that people are leveraging or engaging with on that platform in particular.
Yeah.
So one that I found super interesting was keeping the same theme of our dinner time in mind. We tested essentially going after two different hashtags. One was a very generic hashtag cooking. Let's go after anyone who is interested in cooking, wants to understand about recipes. And the other one was cooking talk. So not just cooking, but actually cooking recipes on TikTok. And we saw those TikTok related ones work so much better at finding the right user, because they weren't just going after people who enjoy food in general, but really looking for those easy, hacky ways of preparing meals that are convenient for them, that are still going to be tasty, that have that hook or that key value proposition that we want to put forward. So that's something that I would highly encourage brands to look out for, is not just a general theme of the type of interest that they believe their consumer is going to be really interested in, but also where can we bring the platform more into it? Where else is that available? And that's when you kind of go sleuthing. You dive into the platform, you see what's available, and you balance it with the total number of interactions that a specific hashtag has received. So I maybe wouldn't go as deep as, hashtag cooking dinner for 30-year-old, or I don't know, whatever. But it may be, certain things that are too specific and too deep that just aren't getting enough engagement. So you do want to balance the interactions with the volume or the specificity that you are putting in. But I think anywhere where we can bring in that platform, where we can bring in that sort of inspirational angle, we have seen that work really well for TikTok in particular. So yeah.
And I would share this tip for this, as I have for other platforms as well, but maybe a great way to go about kind of finding some of those popular hashtags in your niche is to look at the most popular creators within your niche. What hashtags are they using? Which hashtag do all of them use? Maybe that's really kind of the sweet spot. And just to clarify, Shivani, before, when you said cooking talk, is that cooking talk TOC?
TOK, TikTok.
Or I'm sorry, yeah, TOK, that's what I meant. Yeah. So not talk, but talk. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like parents of TikTok versus just parenting interests.
Right.
That's where we're seeing that come through. And no, I love the idea of looking at hashtags that your creators are posting. I think another place where we can absolutely bring in cross-channel learnings from is go into your Google ads. Look at what are the branded or non-branded searches that are really coming through. What are people converting on? Another place that is super interesting, and I know we're not talking about Pinterest today, but if you are running anything on Pinterest, about 96% of the searches on that platform are non-branded. So you're really catching users
Right.
at the point where they're still in that inspiration phase. They're looking to, understand what product or what brand could potentially fit into their routine or into their customer needs. And so look at where other things are serving. Look at, especially Google, I feel when you dive into those search terms, there's so much incredible information and nuggets that you can pull from what are users actually thinking about? How are they curious? And that can inform not just the interest or hashtag based targeting that you're putting into the platform, but also what are you actually putting in your creatives? If you're like for your videos, what are the couple of keywords that you're putting into the first 2 seconds of that video? What is that, problem or storytelling that you want to highlight? And there's so much across all of the different channels. I would assume that for any brands that are looking at TikTok, it likely isn't the first channel that they're starting on. So
Right.
you have media running elsewhere. Don't let TikTok be, something in a dark ether that you know nothing about, because you have some incredible information about your customers already. Leverage that and leverage where or how they're engaging across digital to powerhouse your TikTok.
Absolutely. That's no way. The point landed well. Shivani, let's shift gears just a little bit here, because I thought that something that you pointed out about running on TikTok, and this is true of other channels, but maybe it's even more true of TikTok, is the sheer volume of creative that you need to really effectively test. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The TikTok algorithm, as great as it can be, is also a little bit of a fickle beast. So it needs to be fed. Even if you're going on the platform or on the tool, just scrolling as a consumer or a viewer, you see different things trend every week, if not every day. And so the shelf life of creatives just isn't the same on TikTok as it is on a lot of other platforms. And so brands just have to be cognizant of that. It's hard to look into something and you say, hey, this did really great for 4 days, but now we're seeing it go down. So was it a loser to begin with? No, it
Right.
just only had so much time to really run and shine until something else has to be ready to sort of take its place. And I think that's something that, as a marketer, if you are aware of and you understand how that platform works, you have tools in your arsenal that you can use to make sure not only do you have the volume that you need, but you're also taking learnings from what you are actively running on the platform and what you're seeing working to get those iterations in, to get net new videos or content into the mix. And yeah, I think there's some great stuff. I want to make sure we touch on AI, because I think that's going to be a huge tool for marketers to be able to leverage and just be able to balance the needs for volume on TikTok in particular.
I thought this was a really creative use case for AI, and maybe a little out of the box considering how early we are on it. But yeah, talk to me about using AI to scale creative on TikTok.
Yeah, absolutely. AI is in its very early days. I'm still surprised every day at some of the capabilities and what you're able to build. But I think a couple of places where it can really work is essentially being able to cut down the amount of lead time that a lot of brands need to get something that has that UGC, more organic or native feel. Oftentimes people are struggling to find the right creator, have them shoot, have it be on brand, and it just takes so much time that often by the time that content is ready, that trend's already passed. It's
Right.
gone. We're on, we kind of missed the train. And so one thing that AI has started to get pretty good at actually is being able to generate these creator personas, essentially, where you're able to define the type of creator that you're looking for, what age, what gender, what demographic, even if you want something as detailed as, hey, I want them sitting in their house in the kitchen, and it should be a very upscale looking house, or we want someone a little bit more relatable. You can put in those briefs for them to generate what type of actor that you want showcased, as well as put in the actual script you want that user to read. Now, with that, the other thing that I find interesting is oftentimes if you just give a script, and I think this is how a lot of us think about, well, if I tell my computer to read some words to me, it's going to come out sounding like a robot.
Yep, exactly.
We can try to avoid that. And so a lot of these tools now also have the ability to layer in tonality. So where do we want someone to pause? Where do we want someone to sound a lot more excited or disgruntled because they're talking about the problem that they're having in their day? We can put in those cues to make it sound a little less robotic, so to speak. But then even with that, I probably don't want to see someone talking to camera the entire time. And I think that's when it's going to, you might start to lose some customers, especially on a platform like TikTok where people are looking for authenticity. They're on the nose and they want to see, hey, that's not right. There's something glitching here, and they're going to move past. So that's when having a great creative team can really be the biggest tool in your belt, because you're able to identify those little spots where something isn't working. Let's bring in B-roll. Let's, get some cuts and, creative edits into the mix. So we're showing different use cases of the product. If we're talking about, for example, a drink, we're talking about an energy drink and we're selling it's the new Gatorade that everyone wants for their kids' soccer team. I don't want to just see a mom talking to camera the whole time because I'm going to lose her. Let's bring in some kids on the field. Let's bring in some people having the drink. And that's going to essentially, that editing can make the creative go a lot farther. And what you're also able to do with that is be very strategic with what you're putting into market. So for that exact same script and content from a visual perspective, let's try 4 different hooks. We all know that the first 2 or 3 seconds are going to be the most important because we didn't stop the scroll, we lost the person. Doesn't matter how fantastic the rest of the video was. So let's try a couple of different hooks there as well. And just that simple change in your strategy essentially quadruple the total amount of volume you have to then layer into the platform.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All good.
I was just gonna put a point on what you said, because I do think that using AI to generate different creative assets is, like I say, just out of the box thinking in terms of kind of meeting that creative volume that you're really going to need to scale on TikTok. But that real obstacle is TikTok is a platform that thrives on authenticity. So now you're putting out potentially an actor who's giving a testimonial who's not a real actor. It's, so it's like, I don't think it's just going to turn some people off. You're going to lose them. I think people will get angry about it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't test it. It means that you should be very artful about the ways that you're using AI. Maybe you don't even want to use an AI generated actor. Maybe you don't want to try to trick people, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't use the AI voiceover, which is kind of a style in and of itself now. It's very popular. That itself could grab attention. Shivani, I think that you had mentioned to me the ability to create kind of like a podcast conversation. That's a awesome idea for some voiceover for like a creative, to go over a hook or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's a fantastic point. When we talk about AI, we tend to think of creators, but there's so much more that they're bringing. So from a voiceover perspective, absolutely. I actually just came across this tool recently where rather than creating a script or a voiceover where it's coming from the sound of a brand or a single testimonial, you're essentially putting in saying, hey, my brand is X. Here are the 3 key problems or key
Mm-hmm.
moments in which I can fit in. Let's bring that into a conversation. And what the tool is actually able to generate is whether it's a conversation or whether it's a clear question answer podcast style, but you're hearing two very distinct users having a conversation and talking about whether it's, oh, can you tell me about how you solve your dinner time struggles? Or it's just two moms having a conversation about, oh my God, you won't believe the trouble that my kids put me through every time 7 p.m. rolls around. Oh, didn't you know? Here's everything. Here's, what I actually do. Here's how I've been able to solve for that. And that's just a voiceover. You could
Mm-hmm.
still have very different visuals in play where you're
Yep.
showcasing the product. You're showcasing those kids being happy with a meal or frustrated before it. And there's a lot to play around with that. I think the other thing that people tend to discount is the sheer ability for AI to produce image ads, not just video. So we're taking the brand, we're taking the product, let's put it into different settings. Let's put it around different, in different scenarios where you can use that as part of your either static ad strategy or as leveraging as a specific hook or something that comes in as part of the video and showing all of the different use cases for that product as well. So I wouldn't be too hesitant or I wouldn't shy too far away from AI, especially in a world where volume is really picking up in a space like TikTok. I
Yep.
think the other thing to think about is it may not be the thing that we want to put the most money behind, but it may be something that we're leveraging a lot more just for testing. So, for example, hey, we want to try 4 different actors saying 4 different styles of scripts. Let's get a very small testing budget behind it because we know we can generate this quickly. We know we can generate a lot of different iterations. And let's get some very early learnings on what's actually resonating well. What are we seeing people engage with? And if we identify one as a clear winner, now we can actually outsource to an authentic creator. We
Right.
have the learnings to share and say, hey, this is the, key hook or the key story we want you to be able to nail down, but let's have it be a lot more authentic. Let's have that be the thing that we can ultimately scale and what the vast majority of eyeballs are going to see eventually. So we're trying to avoid the anger. We're trying to, calm the masses. But at the same time, we want to make sure we're learning. We want to make sure we're testing enough and rapidly to make sure we're staying on top of those trends and we're to be able to identify anything new that could potentially be working or that we want to be on the lookout for. So I think that's another place that AI can really play a key role is in your testing strategy. It doesn't have to be the thing that, 90% of your budget goes to.
Shivani, that is so clever. I almost feel like you buried the lead. That is honestly, I really do believe that is right on. I mean, in the past, I've talked to brands about leveraging social media advertisements as a way of testing concepts that they might want to use for more high scale productions, right? And I think that you're absolutely right about using AI for a testing strategy because it's a way to just get a bunch of angles out there really quickly. You see what's clicking through, and then you know what you've got a better idea of what's worth your time to invest in with creators or what have you.
Exactly. We know it's going to take time. We know it's going to take money to get those produced videos in, to find the right user, to find the right message to put out there. Let's have that learning first. So we're not putting a ton of money and we're putting a ton of time behind something and then cut to, oh, this actually didn't work at all. And we're starting from scratch again. So yeah, I think AI can be fantastic to fuel your testing. And then from there, you invest and you actually produce what you have seen signs of working. And that's what you look to grow with some data under your belt.
Shivani, Awesome insights today. Really appreciate your time doing this. Just to recap us a little bit, I think that our overall sort of philosophy on TikTok is to really sort of to lean in to those native trends, probably even more important to be doing this on TikTok than a lot of the other channels. Spark ads, a great way to start. If, maybe you've had experiences working with whitelisters on other channels. If you have, I think you probably already understand the value that can come from that. But I think that's a really keen insight for TikTok. The interest targeting, absolutely find those hashtags that are really popular within your niche on TikTok. The creative ad structure should be 101 for anyone putting out creative on TikTok. And the AI creation, like I say, I would encourage anyone to do this. I know the brands are going to be uptight about this. They don't like to be seen in the wrong light here or there, but I really do believe that there's a lot of value, particularly in that testing structure, testing strategy that you just talked about. So Shivani, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I think that was fantastic. I'm excited to see a lot of new brands testing into TikTok.
Yeah.
Don't love the fact that it might increase auction prices that I'm running on, but the more players, the more ideas, the better we all are.
Exactly. Well, Shivani, thank you so much for being with us today. This is Shivani Kakar, Senior Acquisition Manager at Jump 450. And if you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.